students, this is Teacher Ken. Welcome to this week's intermediate class where we're going to be learning just the final step from a series of three different, let's say, expressions that we have been learning, or three different ways to express yourself. When you're giving two ideas that are either the same or different, we've been practicing the uses of to or so. For example, I like soccer. Oh, I like soccer too. Or I like soccer and John does too. The same way we learn to use so, like I like soccer and so does John, when both ideas are affirmative. When both ideas are negative, we learned to use neither and either. For example, I don't like soccer and John doesn't either, or I don't like soccer and neither does John. Now we're going to practice in the case of having one that is affirmative and one that is negative. This one is not so complicated because we just use but, and for that reason we're going to just review the correct use of but we're going to practice an exercise that has all of these terms. It has to and so, it has either and neither, and it also has but. In any case, let's get started with this week's class. Let me just go ahead and share the screen for you guys. Right now, we're going to our English sentence structure book. Remember, it's available completely free on my podcast episodes and video descriptions. And if you would like to get your own physical copy, you can buy it on Amazon. The link is in the description as well. The link for the free access is for you to use in our practices. And if you would like to have the copy for you to practice on your own, you are more than welcome. Again, the link is on the descriptions. As I mentioned, we're going to be practicing the use of but here. In this case, we have an idea that is affirmative. John is a student. And then we have the negative. Mr. Hill isn't. Because we have one affirmative and one negative, we will use but. Okay? Again, this one is not going to be very complicated if you already saw the two previous videos on the intermediate level, which are for to and so and either and neither. I'm going to go ahead and read the examples that are right here. After that, I will go ahead and read the additional examples and we will go to the practice exercise, okay? So, very easy. Going slow. Repeat after me. John is a student. Mr. Hill isn't a student. John is a student, but Mr. Hill isn't. Very good, let's continue. Mr. Hill isn't a student. John is a student. So we will say Mr. Hill isn't a student, but John is. Now, guys, give me just one moment, very, very quickly. Let's see. Yes. Okay. I hope there isn't really an issue by the noise that is in the back. My neighbor has decided to start playing some very loud music. I'll be back in less than 10 seconds. I'll just close a couple doors. Okay? You can count if you want. Yes. I'm sorry. I know it took more than 10 seconds. Anyway, what I would like to explain right now is it doesn't matter what the order of affirmative versus negative is. As you saw in the examples, it doesn't matter if the affirmative is first and the negative second, or the other way around, okay? Just like in this second example. Because we have Mr. Hill isn't, and then John is. So I start with the negative. I put but, the person, and the auxiliary. The order is always going to be the same when we're talking about the part that goes after the comma. It's always going to be but, the person, and the auxiliary, okay? Instead of a person, there could be an animal, there could be a place or something like that. I know, it's a noun. But let's go ahead and check the additional examples. Again, these ones are just for but. It says, John is going to go, but Mary isn't. Repeat. Okay. John can play the piano, but Mary can't. John went, but Mary didn't. Okay, and now with the negative first. Mary wasn't here, but John was. Mary can't play the piano, but John can. Mary didn't go, but John did. Okay? So, on this exercise, we are not going to do exercise 8 in the book. We're going to go to exercise 9 because exercise 9 has all the 3 different possibilities. We have the possibility when the 2 ideas are affirmative, when both of them are negative, and when one is affirmative and the other one is negative. I'm going to go ahead and do some highlighting here so that we can remember those small details. Remember that if we have 2 affirmatives, for example, here I have can, and in that case, I will go ahead and use 2. If I have 2 negatives, let me erase this one. I'm going to use a different color. When both ideas are negative, he doesn't, his friends don't, you will use either. And if you have one that is affirmative and one that is negative, like in this case, or negative and affirmative, you will use, but. Let me keep the color code the right way. So if we have one affirmative and one negative, like in example number 3, we will use but. Now, remember that in the case of 2 and either, we have the other structures, the structure with so and the structure with neither, okay? For that reason, and because it's only 14 sentences, we're going to go ahead and practice both. I'm going to give you guys both. Remember that if for any reason it's confusing or difficult and you haven't seen the previous lessons on the intermediate level, please go ahead and do so. The intermediate level comprehends a lot of details that are important for you to know, and they build up one on top of the other. On the intermediate level, we already saw modal auxiliaries, to and so, either and neither, and now we're going to see but. If you have any questions, either on this, on my other videos, just make sure you leave me a message, okay? I'm going to go from the examples And I'm going to give you both structures, okay? In the case of but, I will only give you one because there's no way to change the order, okay? Let's go from the examples. And remember that at first, I want you to look at the book or look at the video, look at the sentences, look at the colors, listen, take your time, repeat, correct yourself. The first 2 times are going to be the slowest ones, okay? Remember, you should be doing this at least 3 or 4 times a week, okay? I am going to read the sentence and I will give you a moment to say the correct answer. And after that, I will tell you the correct answer so that you can compare it with your own. And I will give you a moment to also repeat what I said in case you want to correct it. Let's go from example number 1. He can go to the party. His friends can go to the party. Okay. He can go to the party and his friends can too. Repeat. Very good. The other structure is he can go to the party and so can his friends. Okay. So we have the 2 structures. His friends can too, and so can his friends. Okay? Let's see, just a moment. There we go. Example number 2. He doesn't wear a hat. His friends don't wear a hat. He doesn't wear a hat, and his friends don't either. Let's take a look at the other structure. The other structure is and neither, let's see, do his friends. So he doesn't wear a hat and neither do his friends. Repeat. And the last example is John can't play the piano. Mary can play the piano. John can't play the piano, but Mary can. Okay, so remember, if both ideas are affirmative, we're doing the to example and the so example. If both are negative, we're doing either and neither. But if we have one affirmative and one negative, then we're only taking care of but. Okay? Take it slow. It'll all be fine. Let's get this party started. Mary arrived early. Her friends didn't arrive early. Mary arrived early, but her friends didn't. Okay. John was here yesterday. Paul was here yesterday. So John was here yesterday and Paul was too. John was here yesterday And so was Paul. Okay, very good. Let's continue with number 3. They weren't in Chicago. Mary was in Chicago. They weren't in Chicago, but Mary was. They should come to class every day. She should come to class every day. They should come to class, and she should too. They should come to class every day, and so should she. Okay. They shouldn't miss class. She shouldn't miss class. They shouldn't miss class, and she shouldn't either. They shouldn't miss class, and neither should she. Very good. They have to take an exam. She has to take an exam. Okay. They have to take an exam, and she does too. They have to take an exam, and so does she. Mary can't go to the dance tomorrow night. John can go to the dance tomorrow night. Mary can't go to the dance tomorrow night, but John can. Okay. John didn't go to Mexico last summer. Bob went to Mexico last summer. John didn't go to Mexico last summer, but Bob did. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson will come to the party. Their children will come to the party. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson will come to the party, and their children will too. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson will come to the party, and so will their children. Mr. and Miss Smith, sorry guys, Mr. and Mrs. Smith might not come. Their friends might not come. Mr. and Mrs. Smith might not come, and their friends might not either. Mr. and Mrs. Smith might not come, and neither might his friends. Sorry, and neither might their friends. Okay. Uruguay isn't a very big country. Brazil is a very big country. Uruguay isn't a very big country, but Brazil is. Paul and George never go to the movies. John goes to the movies. Okay. Paul and George never go to the movies, but John does. Mary frequently goes to the movies. John frequently goes to the movies. Mary frequently goes to the movies, and John does too. Mary frequently goes to the movies, and so does John. Bobby often sees John. We rarely see John. Bob often sees John, but we rarely do. Okay, so I know that it's sometimes complicated to get accustomed to using the different structures, but it's a good practice for you to internalize both of them. And that way, you will be able to recognize both of them when you listen to them. When you're speaking, you are most probably going to choose one, either two or so, either or neither, and stick to it. But it's important that you also learn to recognize the ones that you're not using, okay? Remember that this exercise is divided in two parts. There is a conversation practice that is on this part of the book, and there is a written practice that is on the second part of the online book, okay? Right now, we are in lesson 11, and we are taking a look at box B3. So when you go to the second half of the book, you're going to look for lesson 11. Let me show you what that should look like. That is lesson 7. Let's keep going down. Yes, this is the one for lesson 10. Here we have lesson 11, right? And we have B that has to, either, and but. So in here, we're going to go down to the exercise that says that it is for box B. see. We keep on checking. If you see, the previous exercises are for you to practice modals. And then after that, you're going to start practicing the to, and so, and the others. Let me see. There is a lot of modals practice, okay? That's good. That is very good for you. But now, we finally have on page, let's see, we're going to page 164 of the English Sentence Practices book. That is the second half of the online book. And yes, you can also get the book on Amazon. Page 164 of the Physical English Sentence Practices book. Page 490 on the online resource available on my podcast. Sorry. And there you will be able to find practices for to, either, and but. I just want to make sure you have all the resources you need so that you can practice. And after you do this written exercise, go to the last part of the book and you will be able to find the answers. You're going to look, you see, lesson 11, exercise 1, 2, 3. We had page 164, right? Look, right here, exercise 11, page 164. And you will find all the answers. Everything is there. So you will be able to check and correct yourself if you would like. If for whatever reason you still have questions after that, leave me a message either in the comments or over WhatsApp, okay? Thank you very much for staying for today's class. Remember that English is easy. You just need to practice, okay? And see you next class.